Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Base Paths and Brewskis. Today is episode 26, not your average series breakdown. Today we have the prospect update. Also, not your average episode because I'm actually drinking alcohol, like the podcast promotes. Not quite a beer though, so I'm still kind of being a bit of a
You're tiptoeing.
yeah. I'm kind
Tiptoeing.
of starting to cross the line back into being a good podcaster again. But I have the tequila seltzer by High Noon, passion fruit flavor. This flavor's decent. I think in the pack there was a what's the one I just had? Um, there was a lime one that was pretty good. This one's decent, and then there was another one that was bad. Grapefruit technique. It was pretty good. So
That is such a throwback. Oh my god.
Haley and I were talking about that, but just the video, not no actions were taken yet. No demonstrations were had. Anyway, we're gonna jump right in. Prospects 30 through 21. Dom, first I'll have you kind of break down the wonderful chart and kind of explanations of what some of these scouting numbers will be that we're talking about in terms of their like prospect grade. So if you kind of want to run through that quick, go right ahead.
So I kind of got two for you. One is from Baseball America. It kind of helped me conceptualize how each tool is rated individually. So obviously the MLB scouting scale is 20 through 80, 80 being essentially elite, top of the league. A lot of scouts consider only one player's tool to be a true 80. You know, there's never going to be a perfect baseball player. But some examples of 80s for tools and players would be like Shohei Ohtani's or Aaron Judge's power, Devin Williams' changeup,
Corbin Carroll's everything.
Yeah, he's the first one. Corbin Carroll's speed, stuff like that. You know, truly elite stuff. Mm-hmm. Going down from there, 70 is plus plus. Among the best tools in the game. So like Freddie Freeman's hitting ability, his ability to put bat on ball, Blake Snell's curveball, or Ronald Acuna's arm. You know, so seriously talented tools. 60 is considered plus, such as Zach Gallen's control, Mark Simeon's defense. And then 50 through 55 is considered average or slightly above average.
Kind of what I consider myself in most things too. So I feel like I'm kind of a 50-55 type guy.
Facts. And then 40 and 45 are like you're below average, but you're still serviceable. And some of your tools are still serviceable, such as like below average would be for Rafael Devers' defense. You know, so he can play third base, but he leaves a lot to be desired. 30 is pretty poor, such as Kyle Hendricks' fastball, as the Brewers took advantage of a couple weeks ago. And then 20 is as bad as it can get. You know, this is Daniel Vogelbach's speed.
Danny Burgers.
Essentially non-existent. And then I guess I'll touch a little bit too on like the overall grade. But for hitters, an overall 80 grade hitter would be like a top 1 to 2 hitter in baseball. Mm-hmm. 75 would be top 2 to 3. 70 is top 5. 65 would be an all-star. Really anything above 45 you'd consider like an average everyday baseball player that's going to contribute. 40, 45 are your platoon or utility guys that kind of fill out the roster. And then 35 and 30 are like spot or emergency players. Starting pitchers, you know, 70 through 80 are usually your ace, you know, top end guys. And then kind of the rest of rotation fills out from there, with your 40 being like a swing spot starting pitcher, 50, 55 being your 3 through 4 on average, and then anything below 40 is like something like what the Brewers have right now, where we need an emergency call up and we need somebody to throw a couple innings.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, today we probably won't be worrying much about the 30 in terms of overall guys because it is top 30, but it is a good idea to get that baseline of like, okay, 30 are like a 30 overall guy is basically like a career minor league type guy. Blake Perkins up until this year, pretty much, which is kind of crazy. But um, I think that's like a good baseline to understand that that's a player who probably isn't in the majors that much. So some of the overall ratings you'll see, I believe the lowest overall for a player on this list that we'll talk about today is a 40. Unless you
Mhm.
found anything different, but my lowest player was a 40. Anything else you wanted to add in before we hop right into the talking about some of these guys?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just good to put the disclaimer out there that while these grades, while they say maybe like 40, 45 now, which doesn't project very well, like that projects to be bench or platoon, that doesn't mean they can't go up, as
Mm-hmm.
they continue to develop. So these obviously aren't set in stone. Some players will make positive jumps, some may regress a bit. So take these
Yep.
grades with a grain of salt.
Yeah. I mean, it's still people judging as many analytics and computers that are involved now. It's still, the person who types in the number for the grade is still a human, and obviously
Yeah.
humans are not quite perfect yet, far from. So we'll hop right in with number 30. How this is going to work is I'm going to take the even prospects, Dom is going to take the odd prospects, and we're just going to kind of rattle back and forth. If you have anything to say about my guys, feel free to hop in after. Otherwise, once I kind of shut up about my dude, you hop right into your dude and we can get rolling.
All
Um,
right.
so number 30, Ryan Burchard. Wasn't super familiar with this guy's game. I hadn't actually heard of his name until I looked at the list today. 20-year-old, 40 grade. He's currently in A ball. I believe that is what is our A team? Carolina
Carolina
Mudcats, I think.
Mudcat.
Yep. So down in Carolina, running through his scouting grades, a 60 fastball, 55 curveball, 55 slider, 40 control with an overall at 40. Kind of a mid 90s fastball that can max up around 98. I know he had been kind of making some big strides, which kind of compares to a dude we'll talk about a little later on this list as he's a higher ranked prospect that I was kind of looking into. A former JUCO pitcher. He was a pretty solid dude. A lot of JUCO pitchers on this list that'll kind of be a theme here. One of
Yeah.
them just made a start the other day for the Brewers. Carlos Rodriguez, a former JUCO guy. Um, he's a big K strikeout guy, but he also brings the walks with too. That's why that control rating is around a 40. It does have a good fastball, curveball, and slider. His changeup is really kind of going to need work, and that'll probably decide whether or not he'd be a reliever type or a starting type going forward, whether he can develop that changeup or not. So overall, I think he's going to be a high climber on the list. He seemed to have a lot of good stuff, but just kind of very new to the system. So
Mhm.
yeah, feel free to hop into your dude unless you have any comments about my good friend Ryan here.
That's the first time I've heard of him, to be honest. No disrespect, but
Yeah, same. No, and if it
no
comes
disrespect.
across ever disrespectful, like
Yeah, we
we
don't.
are, I mean, these dudes are ballers. Like
Yeah, they're very good at what
they're
they do.
studs.
Yeah.
So like we could not do what they do. But anyway, yeah, you go ahead, man.
Yeah, so number 29, I hope I say this right, but it's Filippo Dituri, shortstop slash second baseman. He's currently at single A in Carolina. He started this year at the Arizona Complex League with the Brewers rookie ball team. Overall grade is a 40. He's got 50 hit, 30 power, 45 running ability, 60 arm, and 50 field. Um, so far this year, he's actually been kind of raking in the two levels he's played. He's hitting 311 with a 455 on base percentage and 447 in two levels, and that's in 29 games so far. So he's shown a good ability to not only hit the ball but slug and get on base quite well. Um, he was an international signing in 2023. Uh, some of his traits. He's shown good discipline at the plate against the wild arms of the lower level pro ball, but that'll obviously be tested as he continues climbing. His power is a real question mark, as almost 50% of his batted balls in 2023 were on the ground. And I think that may be due to his frame. He's 5'11", only 165, so he's kind of a slight build. Um,
Yeah, yep.
and he spent most of his time at shortstop due to his arm talent. Like I said earlier, that 60 arm, it really gives him a leg up playing up the middle too, as he's also like a slightly above average runner. And then just the ETA given on I think it's MLB.com was 2028, which
Mhm.
these ETAs aren't always the greatest, but I thought I'd add that in there. That would be his 22-year-old season if everything
Wow.
goes to plan.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
I'm
I
actually
think
really
eight.
excited for him. He seems like
Yeah,
he's going to be really good.
yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things that jump off to me. 18-year-old in A ball, that's pretty solid. Being a switch hitting guy who is projecting as a shortstop, I think there's a lot of guys on this list we'll talk about that probably wouldn't see big league time as a shortstop just because some of their tools aren't quite up to par with what you need when you're
Mhm.
at the show. But yeah, a lot to be excited about this dude. It was cool hearing about him. I had heard his name before, but just wasn't super familiar with his game. But hopefully, some of these dudes. A common theme I noticed is some of these dudes need to hit the freaking gym, man. Like,
Yeah, yeah, I
like we
did that. We
a
got a
lot
lot of
of
like
little dudes, but
will hit for high averages, but they're which a lot of them are
yeah,
like in though. So I mean, it's fair. It's like
yeah, yeah.
they're
I mean,
they're
like we're telling this like 17-year-old that he needs to get jacked up a little more, and it's like, yeah, that's it's not that easy.
obviously he's trying.
Yeah, right. It's not that easy. It's much easier said than done. When they're like, "Oh, just put 15 pounds of muscle on him," like, yeah, okay, you go try and put 15 pounds of muscle
Do
on him.
that in a
See
year.
how that
That's
works.
fucking
Yeah,
tough.
yeah. And as you're outside every single day doing cardio basically for 4 hours plus a day, like, yeah, have fun with that. But I'll jump into Patricio Aquino, the right-handed pitcher, 21 years old, 40 grade. I believe I guess I don't have it here. I'm pretty sure an international signing, because I didn't take note of where he came from in terms of if he did go to school. Again, 40 grade, if I didn't mention. Fastball 50, slider 55, changeup 40 with a 50 control grade. His fastball was kind of averaging 92 to 94, touched 96 a bit, so not a heavy velo guy like some of the other guys we might talk about on this list later. Hint, hint, number one. Low 80s slider is kind of his best pitch. He has real good swing and miss stuff. However, his splits were kind of tough, hit very hard by lefties. It said he wasn't, super confident throwing that slider against lefties and was kind of, getting drilled when he would throw fastballs in there against him. So likely projecting as of now as kind of a two-pitch reliever type guy, fastball slider, come in for an inning, try and get some outs. So it's kind of all I got on him. He's currently in what is that? He's here in Wisconsin, in Appleton,
Yeah,
with
the
the Timber
high A.
Rattlers. Yep,
Yeah.
yep. So, yeah, I mean, a 6 foot pitcher, not like the tall, lanky dude, but we have a lot of quote unquote undersized players at every position on this list, and a lot of them have some really cool tools. And I think he's one of them with that slider and the way he's been able to control it. So, very excited about Aquino. He is a dude I also have heard of before, but didn't
Heard the
know that he
name.
had
Yeah.
that. Yeah, didn't know he had that dominating of a slider. It's pretty nasty if you ever get to check it out.
I'll have to check out some videos after this.
Hmm.
All right. I got 27 here. We got Pedro Gwen.
Yeah.
He's an outfielder slash second slash third baseman who's played this year. He's only 17 years old, uh, 5'10", 180, and he's currently in the Arizona Complex League for rookie ball. His grades are 50 hitting, 50 power, 50 running, 55 arm, 55 field for an overall of 40. I don't know how the 40 came into it, but everything
Yeah.
50 or above. But those are his projections, hopefully. Obviously, young kid. He was signed out of Venezuela in 2023 for 60,000. He was signed as a shortstop, but he hasn't gotten a chance to play any shortstop yet because our minors have such an abundance of shortstop prospects that
Hmm.
he's played all three outfield positions though, as well as second and third base. He's off to quite a rough start this year in 2024 in rookie ball. He's hitting 167 with a 236 on base and 208 slugging. That's in 48 at bats. So, smallish sample size, but definitely not something. And he's only 17. So he's technically, if he was American, he wouldn't be done with high school yet. So I
Yeah.
mean, it's not fair to really compare his numbers to somebody who's 22, 23, whatnot.
Right.
In fact, in August of 2023, he was named the Brewers Complex Player of the Month, where he hit 341, 436, and 659.
Mm.
And he had more extra base hits and walks with 7 each than strikeouts over that month.
Wow.
So,
Wow. Vote for
um,
Pedro.
yeah, he's got a pretty heavy tendency to be a pull hitter. I forget the percentage. I don't know why I didn't put it down, but heavy pull hitter. ETA again, 2028. That'd be his 21-year-old season, but who knows?
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, any guy that I hear comes from Venezuela, I get pretty excited about considering uh the guy we just gave a massive contract to before having a day of service time was also a Venezuelan. So I mean, we must have some kind of pipeline there that we can pull these dudes from because we pull some studs from there.
I do
Um,
think the Brewers have one of the nicer, like it's either in Dominican Republic or Venezuela, one of the nicer player development facilities. So I do
mm,
think like we are starting to build that robust pipeline of like young potential brewers in these small
mm.
countries that are pumping out baseball players.
Yeah, I mean, really good athletes overall, not just dudes who know how to swing the bat. I mean, 5 tool type guys, 4 tool type guys. So it's really cool to see that we got some of those guys joining us up in Wisconsin here. Probably not quite used to this climate. At 26, moving on, we have Bishop Letson, prep arm from the great state of Indiana, the crossroads of America. The 19-year-old with a 40 grade. He's a right-hander. Fastball 55, slider 50, changeup 50, control 50. Again, topping out at a 40 overall, kind of odd to me. I think there's a lot of projecting going on with those pitches. His 6'4", lanky, very lanky frame, 6'4", 170. I mean, he's got, he's another one of those dudes where it's like put some muscle on, but I mean if he can throw the fastball, like right now his fastball velocity jumped up from kind of like mid to high 80s and now he's sitting 88 to 94 pretty consistently with the fastball velo. Very tight slider. He has pretty good control of it for a like prep arm drafted last year, I believe, in the 11th round. Yeah, I believe. Was Yeah, he ended up having a blister at like a big showcase. He was supposed to be drafted a lot higher. Had a blister at the showcase, didn't pitch very well. It kind of scared a lot of teams off. We took a chance on him in the 11th round. And yeah, he's got a pretty decent changeup that's kind of coming around. He has a real long road ahead of him being such a young pitcher. I mean, pitchers kind of take a lot longer to generate the confidence, generate the stuff, generate the command for sure. But we seem to have a really good pitching lab, and I'm excited to see what they can do with his tools at the size he already is as a 19-year-old. So, kind of all I had on Bishop there. If you wanted to add more, otherwise we can head on to Mr. Coleman Crow whenever you're ready.
Yeah, Bishop's pro debut, he made it April 12th this year, and in 2 2/3 innings, he had 6 strikeouts for Carolina. So,
Yeah,
really intriguing arm to look
yeah,
out for in the future.
yeah. And even if it is just a relief kind of guy, I mean, he's gonna have some good stuff when he gets up here. So,
Yeah.
really exciting.
All right, on to number 25. We got Coleman Crow, right-handed pitcher. He's currently in Double A with Biloxi, I believe is how you pronounce it. He's 23 years old, 6 foot, 175 pounds. His grades are as follows. He's got graded a 45 fastball, 60 curve, 50 slider, 45 change, and 50 control for an overall 40. He hasn't played in 2024 yet due to his Tommy John surgery in 23. I read that it'd likely be late 2024 at the earliest for him. Um, he was signed by the Angels away from a Kennesaw State commitment in 2019. I forget how much they gave him to get him to not go to college. Then he got traded to the Mets in 2023 for Eduardo Escobar, and then we acquired him in the Hauser and Taylor trade with the Mets this
Yep,
past offseason.
yep.
Um, He's got a four-pitch mix. He's got a fastball that he sits 90 to 93, a mid-70s curveball, mid-80s slider, and then a mid-80s changeup. Let me see here. I didn't noted which one. It was noted that his best pitch was definitely the curveball. Breaks sharply downward with pretty good spin rate. It's got slight sweep, but it's kind of more that 12-6. It appears like the a Clayton Kershaw curveball. Um,
Yep.
Before injury in 2023, he had a 1.88 ERA in 24 innings with 31 strikeouts and 6 walks in Double A for the Angels. So definitely an intriguing prospect in my opinion. If he can come back from Tommy John and start getting some innings in Double A or Triple A or whatever it is, um, from what I read, he's seen as a potential back of the rotation starter. Maybe somebody like Colin Ray or
Hmm.
Bryce Wilson currently. And his ETA was 2025, so next year, and he'd be 24 years old. So he's definitely intriguing to see how he comes back from surgery, though.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of these dudes that are older, quote unquote, older prospects like this, and being so far down on the list like this is can be kind of concerning when you're that age, kind of like the next guy I'll talk about. But really, I think it's kind of a bit of a facade when they're this low. I mean, some of these dudes have some serious talent, and it
Mm-hmm.
could be just some stuff that, slightly went wrong, or maybe one tool in their game they're trying to figure out, or a guy needing to find his position or his role on the team. And I think Coleman Crow is definitely one of those dudes who, if we continue, the future outlook of our starting rotation, as of now, I mean, it's kind of somewhat bleak looking, at least this year. I mean, I know we have other dudes coming up, like next year. I think Coleman Crow could definitely be one of those guys to help, solidify more of a rotation compared to what we have this year. But
Yeah.
I'm gonna head on to Wes Clark at 24, first base, catcher. I think we can kind of start to scratch out that catcher. I don't know how much of that he's gonna end up doing. He's 24 years old, was a college prospect, drafted him out of South Carolina, 40 grade prospect, right right batting, right throwing, as a first baseman, because he caught too. He was a 40 grade hitter. Power is at 60. His running is at 30. Arm 45 and fielding 45 for an overall of 40. Really, this dude's calling card is just having a big bat. In 2021, had the lead for D1 home runs, tied with someone else at 23. We took him in the 10th round of the 2021 draft. Then he led Double A in homers when he was at Biloxi, and the kind of typical slugger. 3 results: high strikeout, a lot of home runs, also draws a lot of walks. So, that hit grade is a 40, not particularly fantastic, along with pretty much everything else in his repertoire. But as a first baseman, being a right-handed, right throwing, right batting first baseman, kind of like a Rhys Hoskins. He's going to have that Rhys Hoskins level offense if he wants to make the show, because really that power is what would, get him in a Milwaukee uniform eventually. He's currently in AAA, and, starting to kind of hit that point of, you're 24, or it's time to start, really putting together some good at bats, some good series when you're down in AAA. And I think he's got a lot of, home run potential. And if he can limit the strikeouts a little bit and, really make himself a solid fielding first baseman, I think he has a shot at getting some time up with us once we inevitably move past Rhys Hoskins, because I don't think that personally will last super long. While it is exciting having him on the team, I think
Yeah.
Wes Clark is definitely a very similar type player to Reese. So I can
Yeah.
see him being a bit of a natural progression from Reese Hoskins. But yeah, big home run guy, and it's kind of it, really. I mean, one
He hits
trick pony
tanks,
in a
man.
way.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
hits
Yep.
tanks. That's all that matters. He had
Yep.
4 spring training home runs with Milwaukee this year, so that's
Yeah.
he can definitely do it against the big league pitching. I mean,
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, he's in
so
AAA. I mean, that's typically, a lot of dudes who are either just knocking on the door of the show or have been in and out of the show. Some of them are, veterans on minor league contracts that know the game like the back of their hand, and he's playing them every day and getting good experience. So
Oh shit, you cut out. My bad. All right.
I just kind of stopped talking suddenly. It's fine.
Oh,
I
okay.
just didn't have anything else to say.
All right. All right. I'll jump in and move on to number 23, and that is Juan Baez, a shortstop and slash third baseman, another shortstop. He's 18 years old, only 5'9", 175 though, so he's pretty stocky, pretty built. Right-handed batting and throwing, and he's currently in low A ball with Carolina. His scouting grades were 50 hitting, 50 power, 50 running, 50 arm, and 45 fielding for an overall of 40. Um, I don't know how or what his agent or whoever he consulted was doing, because he was an international signee for only $10,000 in 2022.
Deal.
Um, and yeah, that seems outrageously low, even for an international prospect from, I don't know where exactly he's from, but even then, that seems incredibly low. Let's see. He was the
Yeah.
Arizona
Wow.
Complex League All-Star in 2023, where he hit 370 with a 395 OBP and 557 slugging over 48 games. So he's definitely a guy that impressed in that rookie ball league. And now this year in low A, he's hitting 295 with a 352 on base and 416 slugging. And that's in 42 games so far, 166 at bats. So, pretty good sample size of a dude who has been hitting the ball well at the lower level. Um, he's an average but savvy runner. He stole 19 bases last year on 21 attempts, but definitely not a worm burner on the base path. Uh, he was noted to have below average range and defensive inconsistencies, so it could push him to third base full time. Again, especially with how many shortstops the Brewers organization have. Uh, as a hitter, he had good hand-eye coordination. He had an 11.2% K rate in 2023, which was the lowest among the Arizona Complex League qualifiers. So this is a guy that I was super excited about as I was reading him and watching, a couple clips of him. He definitely seems to play a bit more mature than that 18-year-old age says. And his is 2027, which would be his 21-year-old season. So
Wow.
definitely one of the guys that I'm, as in the next couple of years, I'm super excited to see how he continues to develop, because he seems to be, maybe like another Joey Ortiz type almost.
Mm-hmm.
I see a lot
Yeah.
of Joey Ortiz in his game.
Yeah, I remember seeing some spring training highlights of him. He's a real stocky dude. 175 might be, he maybe had 1 foot off the scale or something.
Yeah,
he's a
he's big dude.
he's a big dude for being 18 years old, and he had some nice contact in spring training, and he looks athletic for his size too. So he is a Dominican fellow, so he's getting ripped off down there in the DR for $10,000, but. Happens to the best of us.
His first home run this season left the bat at 106. So definitely a guy that's got some pop off the
Yeah,
bat.
yeah. I mean, that's a fantastic thing to have when you're 18, because as you get bigger, stronger, smarter, and get more technique, I mean that stuff just gets better. So if you're doing that already, it's pretty impressive stuff. Um, we'll move to 22. I had no clue about this name, like Yadher Arenamo.
I'm not even gonna
Um,
try.
he is another Venezuelan man signed for $150,000. Oh, starting to run out of time here. um, he 2022 Arizona Complex League All-Star. His hitting was a 50 grade, running was a 30. Excuse me, power was a 30, I believe, running a 45. His arm is a 50, fielding's a 50, overall a 40. He has a crazy swing in batting stance. If you ever get a chance to look at it, it's like Gary Sheffield. Do you remember his like huge arm swing with like he'd swing the bat like almost down into the like strike zone basically.
Yeah, let me look it
It's
up right
so
now.
it's basically like Joey Weimer's load is what it looks
What
like.
the
It's a
hell is that?
very violent swing. It's like one Gary Sheffield and swing. It's like his load. So that might need to get cleaned up. But he is a very good contact hitter, which usually a guy with a swing like that is more of a power guy. Currently, more of a gap power, not necessarily a home run kind of guy. He's 5'8", 160, another one of these dudes that's, a bit smaller. Um, Right-handed guy, right batting as well. He's a smart base runner for having average at best speed, as described. He makes a lot of good decisions that kind of forced in-game blunders kind of from other teams. His athleticism kind of being somewhat questionable. It moved him from shortstop to second base. Yeah, somewhat of a mediocre arm, quote unquote, as well. So I think this is a dude who probably is more of a Bryce Terang type with maybe without the speed. Definitely some good bat to ball skills. So he maybe brings a bit more of that than Terang, or maybe like a current day Bryce Terang who does have the bat to ball skills. But yeah, definitely. I think a lot of raw stuff with him, but I think the bat to ball skills is what puts him at 22 on this list.
Awesome. Yeah, sounds legit. All right, moving on to 21. We got Gregory Barrios, who is currently up here in Wisconsin with the High A affiliate, the Timber Rattlers. He's a shortstop. Again, another one.
Oh yeah.
20 years old, 6 foot, 180 pounds. Um, his he's got a 45 hit grade, 30 power grade, 55 running, 55 arm, 60 field for an overall 40. So definitely more of a savvy base runner and fielder, it appears at
Mm-hmm.
first glance. He's an international signee out of Venezuela for $1 million. He was in that same 2021 class that brought Jackson Churio to the gang. Um, he's moved up one level per season through his 4 pro campaigns, so that's pretty good. Love to see that. Um, at shortstop, he was described as moving like water. He's just very natural and fluid with the way he moves. He's got great instincts and a quick first step. Um, it'll likely be fielding ability that'll kind of lead his rise to higher levels and eventually the Brewers, as his hitting grades aren't the greatest, but his fielding is definitely, his is definitely cream of the crop. Although I will say in 2024, his hitting has taken a huge step. He's in 46 games, he's batting 310 with the 356 on base and 411 slugging in 168 at bats. And he's got 12 stolen bases. So he's definitely kind of doing it all for the Timber Rattlers. Um, Currently, a large portion of his batted balls are fly balls, but he doesn't quite have the power yet to, put him out of the ballpark. Another one of those guys that's kind of not built quite yet. Um, so hopefully, as he matures and starts putting on a little bit of size season over season, we start to see that home run number potentially climb. Even though he wasn't scouted as a huge power guy, you'd like to see even more gap power, putting balls off the wall, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then his ETA was 2026, which would be his 22-year-old season.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think with Mr. Gregory here, definitely the Brewers' style of play, the run prevention, which I'm sure every team is trying to do, but we definitely put a lot of emphasis on having a solid defender and kind of figuring out the hitting later. And I think he's definitely one of those example guys. Like you said, the uh, pretty fantastic grade at fielding, and that's not really handed out too much considering the intensity of playing shortstop. So I think that's definitely a thing that will help him rise through the minor leagues. And as long as he is hitting, the way that you kind of mentioned, how he's been doing this season, I think we'll definitely see him soon.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, we are going to take a little pause break, and we'll be right back. All right, we're back, everybody. We're going to start with prospect number 20. Dylan O'Ray, second base outfielder, 20-year-old guy, 40 grade overall, bats left, throws right, 55 hit grade, 20 power grade, very low, but a 70 run grade, starting to remind you of someone that plays second base right now. 45 arm along with a 55 field. He's a fantastic on base player, just standing at just 5'7", another one of these kind of smaller guys. Uh, as I kind of had mentioned, hint, hint before, Bryce Terang style hitting, 57.1% ground balls, typically uses his speed and just bat to ball skills to get on base quite a bit, kind of a hustle player. Um, Very high level base stealing accompanying this speed, so it's actually being put to good use. Athletic enough to kind of be a shortstop, but ended up just with the poor arm strength, kind of being a second baseman. They're also trying him out in center field. Just because of his great range and speed, and it seems to be kind of going well. So, position flexibility never hurt anyone, I don't think, but really zero power to his game as of now. At 5'7", 160, just not a lot getting put behind the ball. And,
Yeah.
once you start hitting those 20 grades, it's kind of hard to start, to see the path of someone getting to the majors or at least sticking there for a while. So I was no, again, no offense. I really like this style of play, the contact, defense, speed first kind of player. But the such little power kind of is starting to make it hard for me to see his path um, to the show and being able to play in Milwaukee. And it was a little surprising that some of these dudes were behind him on the list, as he's already on. We're already on rank 20, and it's somewhat high up on the list, the 20th best player in the organization. So pretty good for him. I haven't watched too much of his game, so I'd like to see this skill set in play in a game. I think that'd be really fun. And he's actually at uh, as of now with the Timber Rattlers. So if we ever want to head up to Appleton, we can maybe go check him out and see what he's all about.
Yeah, I'm looking at some videos of him, and his swing reminds me a lot of Bryce Trang. He's quick hands, gets him to the ball, and then he's off to the races. Um, but yeah, I mean, it'd be tough with such low power, and it's not, you know, power doesn't just mean home runs, but like hitting balls into gaps, hitting balls with a lot of exit velocity to get them out of the infield.
Right.
And when you don't have that, yeah, it becomes tough to see a path to being a successful big leaguer, especially when we already have a couple guys like that on the roster. Like Bryce Terang kind of is very similar in that way, but how many guys do you want like a Bryce Terang in your lineup without much
Right.
power?
Right. And I think this could be a potential, very advantageous piece to have as a trade piece, as we're getting close to this trade deadline. Obviously, you want to have as many good players in your organization as possible, but people paid a lot for Luis Ariz to go play. Bryce Trang's probably going to end up making a decent amount of money in the show. Who's to say that he doesn't put together a bit more power, show off his uh, you know above average level defense. And, who's to say he doesn't become an everyday player one day uh, for another team if we're able to get a piece. So I think there's a lot of flexibility with what he can do for us, including his, position flexibility. A guy who can play second base, center field, a lot of advantages with that ability to have such a wide range of skills given his athleticism, kind of, Bryce Terang, Blake Perkins esque as well. So yeah, that's kind of all I really had to say about him. Canadian dude, kind of like Tyler Black, picked in the third round. So yeah, pretty much it.
All right, yeah. Moving on to number 19, we got Daniel Giarte. I hope I'm saying that right.
I think
Another
so, yeah.
shortstop, 20 years old. He's in low A ball with Carolina right now. Another smaller frame dude at 5'11", 160. We're seeing a very common theme here with our middle infield prospects. Um, he's got a 45 hit grade, 30 power grade, 60 arm, 60 running, 55 field for an overall of 40. Very much so similar to Dylan O'Ray in the sense that he's, pretty above average runner, maybe not as elite of a runner, but then also his ability to field and throw is pretty high. Leaves a lot to be desired as a hitter. He was an international signee out of Venezuela in 2021 in that Churio class that is producing quite a few of our top prospects currently. I mean,
Yep.
19th best in the organization. Um, he's got a strong feel for the strike zone. In 2023, he had a 13.2% walk rate. But overall, his ability to hit the ball hard was questioned a lot. A lot of his contact he produced tended to be weak. 55% of his batted balls were on the ground in 2023, and almost half of those are to the opposite field. So, indicative of maybe some slow hands or, needs to bulk up a bit, like we've been saying with a bunch of other prospects. Um, but fielding wise, he definitely has a range and a plus arm strength to become an above average defender at shortstop. So it's definitely not a question on if he can play defense. It's just whether his bat, if he can get it together at the plate and kind of start stringing along some good at bats. Currently in 2024, in 49 games, he's hitting 236 with a 330 on base and 330 slugging in 191 at bats. So, leaves a lot to be desired, especially at that low A ball. I think, especially when you're looking to see what prospects are ready for moving up, you want to see how they're doing at their current level. You want to see them kind of, they don't have to be killing the competition, but you want to see them having some pretty good stats that stand out. And, 236, a 330 slugging isn't great, especially in low A ball. For a guy that, for guys that we're hoping make it to the major leagues, who knows what that would translate to in the major leagues if you're hitting 236 in low A. But he does have 17 stolen bases, so he's showing off the wheels when he gets on base, and he's got the ability to be another threat on the base path, and that speed also helps him out in the field. So,
Yeah. I mean, just kind of another one of these guys. It kind of reminds me of when you're playing roulette and it's like, you have red or black and you just put your chips on one of them every time. It's kind of what we're doing with the infielders. It's like we're picking like the same type of guys, whether it's through the draft or international free agency, same type of middle infielders, and hoping that some of them hit, because they have a lot of good tools. So I think that's, just another one of these solid prospects that kind of starts with a bit of a high floor type guy. With that being said, I'm going to head into the number 18th prospect, Jorge Quintana. And he is our first 45 grade player. He was the number 12 prospect in the international class this year. He signed for 1.7 milli vanillis in January with the Brewers, a date of birth of April 5th, 2007. Just to
that
throw that out
is
there.
disgusting. That
Yeah,
makes that
dude, this
that
dude's
fills me with so much just pain.
yeah, that's definitely a little slap in the face, a little water to wake you up in the morning. A switch hitting 17-year-old, 55 hit grade, 50 power, 50 run, 50 arm, 50 field. I mean, kind of an all-around great player, and that shows why he was such a high international prospect and why we gave him such a bag. I mean, he's already got, almost $2 million from us. Switch hitting, I mean, that's always that's always a great thing to have. Great way to get yourself in the lineup, kind of like, I don't want to keep bringing him up, but Blake Perkins, switch hitter. He was able, he's an everyday type guy because of that now. He's got good gap power, profiles to be a good power hitter. I believe he's like 6'2", 6'2", 183 as a 17-year-old is a pretty fantastic frame to have. Strong arm, very quick at the shortstop position, kind of projecting to be one of these Corey Seager type tall shortstops, the bigger shortstop. He's just really a well-rounded player, very high ceiling. I mean, he's already 17 and has such great tools. Pretty sure was in the complex league, Arizona complex league. I don't think he's playing any like minor league ball yet. I'm pretty sure he's still a rookie. But But yeah, I mean, the dude looks pretty legit considering he just turned 17, as the season was kind of kicking off. And I am excited. I think this is a guy who will, you know, in 3 years we'll look back and be like, he's our number one prospect now. Like this is
Not only our number one, but
yeah.
league wide.
Maybe I might be getting a little too excited, but this could be like a Jackson Trio type hype, in my opinion. Like he looked
at
good.
some of his early videos from when we signed him, his swing looks good. It looks very easy and effortless, and the stuff you listed off, I mean, it just gets me excited, gets me
Yeah.
going.
I mean, anytime I look under the bat category and see an S, that excites me just because of, you don't have to be a platoon guy then.
Yeah.
Even if you're, not the greatest hitter, like he can play every day with that. And he's like qualified easily to play the shortstop position. So yeah, I mean, not much more to say than guy to definitely keep your eyes out for in a couple of years. ETA of 2029. I mean, he is barely 17, so definitely not going to probably be in the show anytime soon. But I mean, that would give him a age of 22 at his debut then, which I mean, it's kind of starting to get into Jackson Trio, ballpark of being 20, 19 years old and debuting. So hopefully he can stay on a good trajectory and work his way through the system.
Awesome. All right, on to number 17. We got Bradley Blaylock. Don't know which one it is. Right-handed pitcher, 23 years old, 6'2", 213. He is in Double A. Some may remember when he was called up this year, was supposed to get an appearance at some point with the major league team, didn't get an appearance, and then was sent back down to Double A. I forget when that was.
Yeah, not super long ago. It must have been in May, right?
Yeah, but
end of May.
That couldn't have felt good for him,
Yeah.
Childhood dream of being called up to the show just to not quite get a chance to show your stuff yet. But
Yep.
His grades, he's got a 55 fastball, 55 curve, 45 slider, 50 splitter, 50 control for an overall grade of 45. In 2024, in 10 starts, he's got a 3.83 ERA, 1.3 WHIP in 47 innings, with 40 strikeouts and 13 walks. He was drafted by the Red Sox in 19. They gave him a $250,000 signing bonus. Another guy that was stolen away from that 2019 Kennesaw State class. Got a feel for him. As I remember correctly, it was Coleman Crow, who also got stolen from that 2019 Kennesaw class. So,
Yeah.
their coaches couldn't have been too happy, but also pretty excited for their guys.
Yeah, you'd think.
And then we acquired him in the Luis Urias trade at the deadline last year in 2023. Was it 2023? I think it was.
Yep, I think so. Yeah, last year with Boston. Yep.
And then obviously the Brewers liked him enough to add him to the 40-man to protect him from the Rule 5 draft. So they definitely see something in him that potentially projects as a big league pitcher, enough to protect them during the draft. He was sidelined all of 22 with Tommy John. Yet the Brewers staff were impressed with how fast his control returned after the surgery. And currently he's got a 4-pitch mix. It is a 92 to 96 mile per hour fastball, 78 to 82-ish mile per hour curveball, mid-80s slider, and then upper 80s splitter, which I believe is a newer pitch for him. It's been developing pretty well, although it seems that lefties have been kind of raking off him a bit more than righties. So definitely something to continue working on in the minors. And then his ETA is, I mean, I think with the way the big league staff has been lately, I do think he could potentially make a start or two or get some innings with the big league crew this year. Otherwise, it was listed as 2025.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the guy I'm about to talk about is a very similar prospect, similar age, ETA kind of thing, same kind of story as well. I have Logan Henderson, the right-handed pitcher, 22 years old, um, JUCO guy. Had an elbow surgery his first spring in the pros, so kind of still just bouncing back from that. Scouting grades have him at a 50 fastball, 40 slider, 65 changeup, control at 55 for an overall of 45. Again, I think we're really kind of starting to work into dudes that are possible rotation guys, back of the rotation, and could excel and become upper echelon starters with definitely a lot of things going right. Huge K guy, strikes out a lot of people. Led junior college, I believe, with 169 strikeouts one season. I believe the year before he was drafted. He has a really good changeup, super north south kind of guy. His fastball, changeup, he relies on heavily as a two pitch mix, which kind of leads me to believe that he could be more of a reliever type, high leverage kind of guy who can come in and just get you some outs with that strikeout ability. Um, Given that he's kind of that north south fastball changeup kind of pitcher, he doesn't really have many splits. Does a great job of facing righties and lefties. Hasn't really struggled against any lefties, which kind of leads me to believe that high leverage situational reliever type guy as well. Overall, though, really exciting dude. I think kind of in the same boat with Blaylock of just being right on the cusp. Both of them are in Double A, which is some believe is a somewhat higher level competition because it's a lot than Triple A. Excuse me, not like compared to the majors, obviously, but there's a lot of dudes that are just getting ready to get into the show, young, hungry dudes, and I think these two guys kind of fall into that category.
Uh,
But
um,
with that being said, we can move on to 15 if you're ready.
yeah. 15, we got Luke Adams, a third baseman slash first baseman, currently in high A for the Timber Rattlers up here in Appleton. He's 20 years old, 6'4", 210 pounds. So it's been a while, but finally a guy that is, built and has some power in his game. So he's got a 45 hit grade, 55 power, 45 run, 50 arm, and 45 field for an overall of 45. Um, his main calling card is that he's got some pop on the bat. So far this year, he's batting in 51 games. He's batting 224, but he's got a 412 on base and 391 slugging. And he's already got 5 home runs in 51 games, so decent numbers. He was a prep prospect drafted out of Hinsdale Central High School in Illinois in 2022. Um, for some of the sabermetric, geeks out there, he produced a 135 weighted runs created plus over 99 games in 23, which, for reference, roughly around 100 is seen as average. So having a 135 is pretty indicative of his ability to create runs and provide value to lineups. It was third best in the Milwaukee system among minor leaguers with at least 400 plate appearances. He also had 30 stolen bases last year, which
Oh,
was for
wow.
somebody of his size, it was kind of surprising. He's very aggressive on the base paths, to say the least.
Fits right in.
Yeah, that's all we do up here. Um, he's got a high leg kick during delivery, which kind of helps him produce that power. It's noted as very similar to Joey Weimer, but it may become a problem as he climbs into the higher levels of minor league baseball, just with the strikeouts and how that high leg kick can really, how pitchers can kind of influence your timing when you have that high leg kick.
Yeah.
And then
Joey
defensively,
Weimer.
yeah, I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, Defensively, he can play third base, but his lack of range due to his size projects a little bit better long term at first base or potentially left field. And then his ETA is 2026, which would put him at 22 years old. Very similar to Wes Clark, kind of power hitting, stocky right-handed hitter that, you're mainly looking for that slugging, extra base hit, home run power. Not going to offer much else outside of that unless he,
Mhm.
really starts developing in some of those other areas.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think kind of similar to Wes Clark, the right is typically as a first baseman not always the favored. Like most infield positions, having a right-handed thrower, typically first base is kind of where you throw your lefty guy at, or especially a lefty bat that you can put in your lineup. So interested to see how those two will kind of battle it out as they progress through the minors. But I'll move on to number 14, Brett Witrowski, kind of like another ski that we'll talk about later. Fantastic fastball, 60 grade slider, 40 on his changeup, and 50 on his cutter. A 45 control for a 45 overall. 21-year-old, throws lefty. He had 21 strikeouts in his first 4 starts in Wisconsin this year. He's currently at Double-A in Biloxi. He was a 13th rounder last year. He's kind of starting to move up real quick through the rankings. He had a fastball that was pretty, it was definitely a solid fastball. He's now hitting triple digits with a fastball that sits mid to high 90s, which is, that's pretty damn good. He has a good sinker, four seam, cutter combo, kind of all three directions that all look the same coming out of the hand, and he throws them all with some pretty good velocity behind him. His sweeper is very frisbee like. I think kind of comparing to Robert Gasser, I'd like to say a very dramatic sweeping pitch, which has worked well for Gasser so far. And if we can get another lefty that's
Mm-hmm.
or excuse me, righty. He's a righty. Righty now on the other side of things doing the same thing as Robert Gasser. That's kind of a cool thing. I think he'd be a fantastic reliever, but with more command, he definitely should be in the starting rotation. I think it's, reliever, fantastic reliever at worst is what he's going to be. I really like this dude. Had some really good stuff and definitely can throw the hell out of the ball. He's got a bright future.
Yeah, after, it's especially cool to seeing some of our prospects that have above average to really good fastballs, after years of our big league pitchers, tending to have those lower end fastballs, it feels like we haven't had. Yeah, obviously Freddie can throw, up to 96, 97, but it'd be really cool to see a starter that can just overpower dudes
Mhm.
with the gas.
Yeah, the old Pittsburgh plan with the
Yeah,
Skeens and Jones,
yeah.
just fireballers. But yeah, I think we're ready for number 13 if you are.
I hope we don't follow that Pittsburgh plan perfectly because then we'll just let them walk
Yeah,
once they hit
true.
free agency.
Yep, pretty much.
At 13, yeah, we got Mike Bove. He is a third base slash second baseman, 22 years old, currently in Double-A in Biloxi. He is 6'1", 210, and he bats lefty, throws righty. So definitely a bigger infielder than kind of some of the other ones we've talked about, at least for the middle infielders. Um, his grades, he had a 60 hitting grade, 40 power, 40 run, 50 arm, 45 fielding, for an overall of 45. Currently in 2024, he's got 58 games total across both high A and double A. He's hitting 340 with a 415 on base and 433 slugging, and that's 215 at bats. He's got 11 doubles, 23 RBIs. So he's kind of raking right now, and he
Hmm.
may be a candidate for a move up to AAA pretty soon. Um, he was drafted in the second round in 2023 out of the University of Nebraska Omaha, um, where his junior season he hit 401 with a 512 on base and 563 slugging. So he was in college, obviously not quite the talent level as a professional baseball league, but obviously he was raking his junior year, and the Brewers like that, took him in the second round. Uh, he's got a quick and compact swing from the left side. Typically prioritizes putting the ball in play. He's got a strong feel for the zone, and a lot of his focus is on producing hits and getting on base anyways can. Because of that, his exit velocity and overall power can suffer, and he's already got, his power is graded at around a 40. So he's really focused on putting the ball in play over driving it. He's a below average runner, which, maybe doesn't project well long term at second base. He may, maybe a third baseman long term. But he could also end up being a first baseman or left fielder due to his lack of overall speed. We'll have to see, though. Definitely the bat is something to get excited about. A guy that is kind of just tearing it up right now in the minors, and hopefully, if he keeps producing like he is, could be a candidate to get some at bats. It says 2026 is ETA, but even maybe next year if there are some potential moves at the big league crew.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there usually is. So definitely a good candidate for that. Up next, I got a guy who somewhat of a similar profile, in my opinion, to Mike. We have Eric Batanti, just 4 years younger. Prep player drafted in the third round last year. Scouting grades going down the line: 40 hit grade, a 60 power grade. So a bit of an invert compared to the what you just described there in terms of the hitting style. But 45 run grade, a 60 arm grade with a 55 field for overall a 45. Bats left, throws right. He's kind of a 3 result guy in the complex league after the draft in 12 games last year, hitting for big time power along with striking out and walking. Good 6'4" lefty bat, a lot of raw power, which hasn't been a common thing on this list. Not many guys that are, just those big dudes. And I mean, this guy's, 18 years old, almost 220 at 6'4". It's a pretty solid build. He did have a 30.9% whiff rate in the complex league. I know it's a small sample, but that is, getting up there a bit when you're swinging and missing that much. Really good arm at third base, kind of listed in his scouting grades. Definitely probably going to stick there. Despite the big shortstop trend we kind of had discussed a bit earlier, I definitely think he projects more as that third base style guy, just due to the size, athleticism, and just having such a good arm. Kind of lets him be more of that power hitting third baseman that teams kind of look for. Other than that, yeah, I think he's from Mississippi, if I remember correctly. Let's check. I can't see it. Yeah, whatever. I don't know. I thought he was a Mississippi dude, but 1.7 million as his above slot bonus. So they really wanted him. They got him. Must have done some good bargaining there to get that. Yeah, I think it's super exciting prospect, a little different from a lot of the infielders we've talked about so far. And I think that's pretty cool. Definitely going to be a while till we see him up in American Family Field. He's still in rookie ball. I think still trying to kind of figure it out there. We'll limit the whiff, limit the Ks, and increase that bat to ball skills with the power he already has naturally. So we can move on to if you want say any more about Eric here, feel free.
No, I am good to move on.
I will say I think we're going to kind of blue ball the audience here a bit. We're going to end it with the 11th player here, and there will be a separate episode coming out with players 10 through 1. So a little bit of a surprise there. We're going to kind of cut you off. Episode's starting to get a little long, and I think that it'll be a bit more of a cool reveal that we can really take our time breaking down the top 10 guys. So
yeah,
if you want to end us off here with Josh.
Yeah, Josh Knoth, right-handed pitcher, 18 years old, prep pitcher. He's currently in Single A, Carolina, 6'1", 190, pretty good frame. His Grades are 55 fastball, 60 curve, 60 slider, 45 changeup, 50 control for an overall grade of 45. So far in 10 starts in 2024, he's got a 4 flat ERA with a 1.44 whip in 36 innings, 23 walks to 42 strikeouts, and a 2-3 record. Um, he was drafted 33rd overall in 2023 out of Patchogue Medford High School, New York. Um, so obviously they must have liked him enough to take him in that, I believe, a compensatory balance or competitive balance pick.
Yep.
He's got a 4-pitch mix currently. He's got a fastball that can touch the upper 90s. His best pitch is the 77 to 80 curveball, and then a low 80 slider, and then he's started to develop a changeup that is still quite a long ways off from probably being serviceable. But he's only 18, so he's got a lot of time to work on it. As his ETA is 2027 as a 21-year-old, so plenty of time for him to figure that stuff out, especially with how well the Brewers pitching lab is. We just pump him out.
Yeah.
He's got a solid history of finding the zone, very repeatable delivery, and with the curveball being his best pitch, he's got a great ability to get chases and swing and misses outside the zone. He may end up a reliever if his changeup doesn't quite develop. Otherwise, he was seen as potentially a high-end starter if it does end up developing to where it can be used against big league hitters because, as we've seen, typically starters without some sort of changeup usually don't have the most success in the bigs as starters. So this is a guy I'm really excited about. I really hope that he can start to develop that changeup because he seems like he's got a lot of great stuff, and he's only 18, so it's really, really exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I think whenever you see, there's a few things I see here that kind of jump off the page. 18-year-old pitcher being drafted in basically the first round that's pretty. They must have really see something in him that they like. It says the first player selected directly from high school since 2013 in the first round for the Brewers. So, pretty high hopes for a high school player like this. I also like seeing that the control is at a 50 with 2 breaking ball pitches, ranked at 60 with a 55 fastball. I think that's extremely encouraging. And I mean, if you can make those pitches elite enough, you'll start. I mean, the changeup, hopefully it comes along, but if you have that kind of stuff, I'm sure that he can be a spot start kind of guy. I think the only thing is with the changeup, it's, guys can kind of sit fastball a lot more on you. And if they don't see the spin on the ball, they just know to take a big old hack at it.
Yeah.
So hopefully, I mean, he is still, like you said, 18, already in A ball, pretty impressive. So, I mean, if he stays on this track, debuting in 2027 as like a 21, 22-year-old, whatever he'd be, that's pretty impressive stuff. But unless you have anything more to say, we can kind of sign off here and get ready for the 10 through 1 at some point here.
Yeah, no, I am good. I'm excited to, eventually break down these top 10 because there's some dudes in there.
Oh, yeah. Well, thank you for listening, guys. Again, check out the socials at the bottom of the video if you're watching on YouTube. If not, go check us out on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, or X, I guess. Had a good little post with Drake featuring on the channel, so that was pretty cool. Thank you guys for listening, and have a good rest of your day.
Peace.